So 2025 is a really exciting year for us. We've seen Bitcoin coming to all-time highs because people start realizing, hey, you know what? Decentralized currency, it's not a crazy, wild idea after all. And honestly, it's only a matter of time before they start expanding and learning about the other applications of decentralization. Which is why this year, even though I feel like sometimes it might feel like a lot of the stuff is lagging behind Bitcoin, I feel like this is a year where people will really understand what is happening and what they can really do with decentralized, well, cloud. This video, we're going to focus very clearly on Impossible Cloud. And honestly, I looked through the website, I looked through the tech. It's very strong tech, but the jargon was crazy. So what I want to do with this video is kind of really explain to you why this is super, super important and you really need to pay attention. And to do that, I want to just give you guys a very quick example. All right, so my team across the groups, I actually got my accountant to calculate this. They spent $4,862 just on Amazon alone. That's not even counting DigitalOcean and other cloud services, just for everything to run smoothly here, whether it's bots, analytics, whatever it is, it actually adds up to be quite a lot. Now, if we actually move this on to a decentralized cloud service, like what ICN is building, we can save up to 80%. So yes, that's $3,800 of savings just for me alone, for just our group alone. That's actually insane. That means we can hire probably 2 interns and buy a couple of bottles for me, right? So this is why it's exciting, because I feel like there's a huge opportunity for a lot of people to save money, but also for us to build a new decentralized foundation. And honestly, why that decentralized foundation is important is because services like Amazon AWS or Google Cloud or Azure, they have an iron grip on companies right now. They feel like, they provide the quote unquote best services for companies. But honestly, when it matches decentralized services, they can even do better. And I think it's a matter of time before people start realizing that and start deploying that. And this is something that we as a team are also looking to do as well. We're actually actively moving things to decentralized cloud services. And what's kind of exciting with ICN Protocol is that they already have cloud services up, but they have a huge array of Web3 specific features that no other centralized services has right now. So AWS doesn't have this stuff, but they have this geared towards new and exciting things like DePIN that needs it. So what I see is opportunity not just to take a piece of the current $80 billion pie, but also grow that as well. So that's why I'm super excited. That's why our team is super excited for all this stuff that's going on. So in today's video, we're going to cover ICN Protocol, what they're doing, and some call to actions as well, because they already have a token sale coming up. They have quite a reasonable evaluation. I think that's $500 million. So that's what we're going to take a look in this video. And of course, everything covered here is my personal opinion, not financial advice. Let's get started. All right, so let's just start off with just a look of what this is targeting, right? So overall, global cloud computing is valued at $676 billion. It's up or down depending on which analytics you take and how you view it. But what's really important is this is a really big pie. And a lot of businesses, and especially new businesses, all need this. So like I said, even with me, myself, I'm already using a lot of these cloud services. And in my past gaming company, that cloud bill was really expensive. I think it was around $18,000 to $25,000 per month, depending on how many people are playing at that time. But yeah, it's a very costly bill. And what Impossible Cloud is doing is they're building the Web3 version of this. So they're allowing everyone to become a node and provide these services for people. So it's like kind of the decentralized version where instead of Amazon's building all these servers, well, we can all participate in building these servers. And in fact, we cut down Amazon's stranglehold on us. They're charging very high premiums for their services and provisions. Now, this isn't an entirely new concept. There's actually quite a few crypto projects that are already trying to build decentralized storage, like Storage. Now, this isn't an entire new concept, right? People have been looking at this for a while. But what ICN Global does is that they're having a version and a dream of the cloud, which is very geared towards Web3. What specifically they have in mind is that they broke down the problem for this hosting into the application layer, the protocol layer, and the hardware layer. What's kind of easy to understand, I mean, especially for me, I love hardware, is the hardware layer. Everyone has a computer, everyone has storage, everyone has compute. But the key here is gluing it all together, which really comes into the technology that's built in the protocol layer. Essentially, this allows everyone to be able to put their hardware to use, but at the same time, it prevents bad actors in the space. What scared most people in the past was they were always afraid, wait, you want everyone to host? Is that even secure? I'd rather trust Amazon. They're running a big e-commerce website. Sure, let's just go there, and their infrastructure is stable. What we're starting to realize now is that if you have a very, very strong protocol layer, that means that you can kick out bad actors, especially with this type of modern design where nodes have to be staked and then there's a financial incentive and loss for not providing services. That incentives makes sure that this service runs clean. And what we've seen is the past history of this is that this type of running things, especially I think it almost took Bitcoin, 13 years to gain some form of recognition as oh yeah, this is a good currency. Well, yeah, that same logic can be applied to what's happening in the decentralized cloud. So the core of solving this problem of having decentralized storage is really the economic incentives, the protocol design. In essence, the way that they solved it is really by having the correct economic incentives, basically these nodes that are for sale and with incentive to do well, to earn tokens and to gain profit share. But at the same time, there's penalties. If you don't perform well, things don't go. Because if you don't perform well as a node, bad things happen. Then, of course, with the securities provided by the protocol, they give that business sense of legitimacy. So why we always chose AWS was, because first of all, our engineers are familiar with it. And yet again, because, everyone feels like they trust Amazon or Alibaba. But the trust towards that now is going and flowing directly towards Web3. The biggest advantage of Web3 is that we can just drastically cut down the cost. Because there's so many other providers can be part of that ecosystem. And because there's so many people that can participate, it's almost like the AI market, right? You see so many people contending for the AI market, you see the costs drastically falling, like OpenAI just cut the costs of O3 model by 80%. You see this basically having a decentralized cloud service, we'll see services cutting down the prices, but at the same time, of course, we benefit because we are the new guys entering the space as Web3 contenders. So essentially that's what ICN Protocol is doing. Now, what's interesting is, of course, they actually completed quite a few phases, which is why their evaluation is higher than just a mere mortal simple startup. Simple startups we see evaluated at maybe $30 million, but these guys are pushing towards 460. And that is because they've already have ICN, they've already have a cloud system. Now the hypernode initialization is start to begin. This is where I say the economic incentives for these nodes to run properly, that's going to start. And what we're going to do is twofold, right? So there's two kind of call to actions here. One is we're going to talk about the upcoming token sale, which is going to be part of the token network. But at the same time, what we really want to cover as well, and this is something that I really care about, is running nodes, right? How do you participate in Web3 decentralization? And that really matters a lot. So the two things that we covered, this video is going to cover the basics of what this whole project is about. But the second video that's going to come on Alpha Drop is how to run the node, right? How to even be part of this. And that's really coming up. So we'll link that video once that's released as well. So we're at this stage, hypernode initialization. That's where the nodes start delivering the compute, the resources onto the network. And then the next step will be, of course, the mainnet launch. Once that mainnet is live, that means everyone can participate and be part of that ecosystem. But at the same time, you're going to see all those services that they've been building, more of them being delivered on, which is why ICN Protocol is actually having a strong evaluation. So the current valuation is $470 million. So this isn't a small project. A few of the projects we cover, a lot of new startups, they have a lower evaluation sometimes. They have a $20 million valuation, $30 million. But why this project is worth so much is because they've already launched strong tech that people are already using. And that is Impossible Cloud. So Impossible Cloud has already been launched. You can actually start logging in and you start pricing, and which is where my price comparisons come from. So if you compare the pricing of Impossible Cloud for S3 storage, 80% less. For object storage, it's 80% less. So it's a lot cheaper per terabyte of storage. And it makes a lot of sense. Honestly, storage right now is dirt cheap. Even compute right now is cheap. Heck, you can buy a Mac Mini and that has a ridiculous amount of power. But if you want to buy a Mac Mini and run that on a cloud or run an equivalent service of a Mac Mini, having that power for Amazon, they're going to make you pay quite a bit. So yes, that's why Impossible Cloud is already launched. You can already use it. It's already available and it's already proven to be useful for businesses. But of course, this isn't just what their simple dream is. Impossible, the whole protocol is delivering even more than that. And that's what's contributing to the very high initial valuation. In terms of progress as well, they've already done their token sales status. So you can actually see on Dune Analytics, so on-chain data, we already see $12.7 million raised by their node sales. And initially, you might think, wow, that's quite a lot. But it makes sense, right? Because you're building a cloud network infrastructure and you want the nodes to have economic incentive to be performant, right? So if you think about that, that's actually not a lot, right? If Amazon wants to build a whole new server infrastructure, it's going to cost them hundreds of millions of dollars. So these nodes basically represents a person's intent to start building a network, right? You have to buy a node to be part of the network and then to participate and provide your resources. So putting that down, that initial deposit makes sense. And already there's 28,000.8 nodes sold. If you already bought one, great, congratulations. There's actually a next step as well because nodes need to have tokens. That's part of this whole economic model. So what's happening with the token sale? So in a token sale, there's a total initial allocation of 700 million tokens. In terms of what they already have right now, they have the storage layer that's S3 compatible, AWS 3, which means that people who are already using AWS, they can already migrate over their storage to the Impossible Cloud. But also they have a compute layer that's GPU and edge containers running. So that means you can actually do your GPU compute. And you know that GPU compute is becoming very useful for AI right now. And on top of that, they have a network layer that's coming in rollout. This is already generating $5.5 million of annual revenue for them. So that's actually not a small number already, with already enterprise demand that's coming and the node sales that's already going, which is why their valuation is quite high because they already have a product. It's not that they're selling air, they already have something that's working and they're growing. Now onto the token itself. So there's actually two components of economic incentives to be part of this. One is the nodes that's already been sold, but also the token has a very powerful use case as well. The token is what kind of powers the network and it's what's kind of the gas for the network if you kind of think of it that way. So it becomes what powers and makes sure that the nodes get paid, what they need to be paid, but it's also what people need to use to pay to use this entire ecosystem. This makes sense because, like I said before, economics is what drives and makes sure that decentralization works. You need to make sure people get paid. You need to make sure that people get penalized. So this is why the token is important. And in terms of the token breakdown, what's happening is that there's a total of 700 million tokens. And it's going to be broken down in this chart. I'll link it there. I'm not going to go through every single line. I think that's kind of unnecessary for this. But what's kind of important is that 20% of this goes towards node rewards. And then, of course, there's a 10% ecosystem fund and reserve as well. But what's important to note here is that there's a 20% node reward, which is quite big if you think about that. There's already a 20% node reward, which is quite important, and which is why running a node is important, which is why we're going to talk about that in a future video on Alpha Drop. And there's also an ecosystem fund as well. This is where you need to pay attention because at this current point already, there's kind of two ways to interact. One is, of course, nodes. Ecosystem is they have a very, very active X. So if you actually look at their X, there's a lot of campaigns and giveaways right now, necessarily airdrops. And of course, there's a token sale coming up soon for the token itself. That's getting as many people to participate as possible. We'll put that link down below for the token sale. It's coming up live soon. But at the end of the day, what's really important for you guys is to take a look at what's happening with token, take a look at the community. They actually have a lot of transparencies as well. So they actually almost almost on a daily basis. You can see AMA lives that's going on, chat with the developers, and of course, just ongoing talks about what's going on and what they're trying to do. I think in terms of communication, they're really top notch on this because they really want, and especially because of their team. And, you know, I didn't do too much talking about the team, but if you look at the team members, they have a lot of experience in the cryptocurrency space. So this is why they know and value communication. But what's important to note, no rewards, ecosystem fund coming out, and a token sale is also coming out very soon as well. So all in all, when I was looking at making this video and when the team was making that recommendation, I looked at the websites, I looked at the breakdown, and I saw it's quite a lot of jargon, right, to go through. Oh, decentralized cloud, ooh, transforming into Web3. But at the end of the day, I think the easiest to break this down is it's just simply cost and technology. Namely, right now, with the right economic incentives, which they have already structured here, they allow everyone to participate and build and be part of this cloud network. This means that if you have a home server, you have a good internet connection, yes, you can provide storage. And storage is dirt cheap right now. You can buy a hard disk for like $200 and that'll provide you like 8 terabytes of storage, right? You can now hook that up and be part of this cloud network and provide that storage. Same with GPU, same with CPU, same with other hardware resources. They're cheap to buy, but hooking it up was what Amazon was charging that premium for. So already with a decentralized cloud, you can cut down that cost for people, savings, like even for people like me. We can actually save quite a substantial bit. At the same time as well, because there's a growing interest in Web3, these companies will have a lead. They're already gearing up and support for projects like Depend projects. So this will be directly powerful and in fact more powerful than what AWS has to offer. Now, of course, there will be some challenges. Of course, getting that adoption will be initially difficult. But I see 2025 as a turning point. Because this year, we suddenly start seeing the power of a decentralized currency, a currency that can send anywhere without the intervention of politics, governments, policies. That became really powerful, and that's what sent Bitcoin prices all the way up. And I see that realization coming in for the cloud services as well, which is why this is really, really exciting. So guys, if you share that excitement, hit that like button, subscribe down below, check out our future video on the node as well, how to participate. And if you haven't done so already, check out the token sale as well. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. See you next one.